The black community is so addicted to victimhood that black people hold themselves back before any of the isms even have a chance to. And I'm gonna try to say this as gently as possible because I know people like to use tone as an excuse for calling people anti-black for 40 days and 40 nights. So on one hand, you have the black community saying, we need more opportunities, better resources, and we want to build wealth in our communities. But then when someone comes along and says, hey, this is how these systems work, and this is how you can use them to your benefit in order to get all of those things that you want, now they're a white supremacist. You say, well, that only works for white people. They were only able to do that because they were white. And there's a couple of things here. Because, number one, this is not 1945. And even back in 1945, there were a lot of things that were only for white people that black people were still doing anyway. Despite the black community making significant progress over the past 50 years, you actually have black people doing less somehow. In the 40s, they said, okay, this is how this works, so this is how I'm going to work around it. Whereas now, people just say, I actually don't know how it works, and even if you tell me how it works, well, I can't do it because I'm black. And there's millions of posts of all this discourse about how this should be that way and how this is so anti-black and we shouldn't have to do this. And yet, none of it has changed. Blaming all of your problems on these things while simultaneously doing nothing to fix them. So you're really only talking about them so that you can justify where you are in life because you're a victim. And the people recycling these talking points are doing just that, recycling talking points. They're not doing the reading or doing their homework. If you don't know how a system operates, how can you possibly dismantle it? Especially in a country where you are literally a minority. How do you think that that's going to happen? And then when people try to teach you how things work so that you can understand and use that to better your situation and your community's situation, now they're a white supremacist. Now they're anti-black. Now they're gay. And a close cousin to this conversation is how black people have victimized the word ghetto. Ghetto is a legitimate aesthetic and lifestyle, the same thing as something like preppy. And on one hand, you keep saying, well, we need to acknowledge that the ghetto is pushing fashion forward and is setting the trend and all of these things. But when something is called ghetto, you automatically make the leap to that being anti-black. Some things are ghetto, point blank, period. So if somebody has the nerve to say, oh, that ghetto thing is ghetto, and you take that offensively, that is your problem. Do I like the ghetto lifestyle aesthetic personally? No. But also people who like that don't like my aesthetic and my lifestyle either. And both of these lines of thinking that I've talked about have nothing to do with other people. These are all conversations only happening within the black community. Listen to all these, think pieces on TikTok or whatever. And so you walk into, a new environment with a lot of white people and you're already making assumptions off of, well, I'm black, so they're going to treat me like this. They're going to do this. And these people haven't even said a word to you. You are walking around as a victim before somebody has even done something. You have already told yourself that you can't do XYZ because you're not white before a white person even told you that, because you didn't even try. So you don't know if you could do it or not. I'm not saying there aren't systemic barriers and challenges that are unique to the black community. But what I am saying is black people aren't the only people that have to go through things. Actually, everybody has to go through things. That is life. That is being human. Just because you face more barriers or you face more adversity does not mean that you cannot do it and that you should not do it. And until black people stop finding reasons why they can't do this and they can't do that, the black community is not going to move.
Generally speaking, I agree with him. Black people, we are addicted to suffering. We are addicted to pain. We are addicted to this mentality that sucks us in. And I think it comes from the genetic makeup and the trauma that we inherited. It's not even intentional at this point. I don't think the people who do this, they do it intentionally. It's inherited. You inherit it in your genetic makeup. You're thinking about it and your system altogether is messed up from the get-go. Your great-grandmother, you're now feeling it. You're now embodying it. It's not something that we should take lightly and dismiss and be like, yeah, you already no, it's a psychological effect of it. And we try as hard to be like, oh, you're not doing XYZ because you've already shrunk yourself in this bubble with good reason. With good reason. Okay, if now I'm like crossing the river and I've seen people being eaten by when they cross that river, and I have children, I'm like, don't cross that river. My children don't know why they've never crossed that river. They haven't seen crocodiles there eating people, but I have. And I'm telling them crocodiles have eaten. And then they eventually decide for some reason they want to be the brave. They want to be like you. And then they're like brave and let's cross the river one day. And they get eaten. You understand? But it doesn't mean that the river cannot be crossed. You can find a way to cross the crocodile river without you getting eaten. And it starts here as well. It starts here as well in your mind, how you build your mindset, how you build yourself to think. Because without the tools, without the necessary skills, you're gonna be stuck here with me in my state of thinking of saying it's impossible, you cannot cross the river because there are crocodiles in that river. Or you are gonna get up and be like, oh, there are crocodiles? I'm building a boat. I'm building this kind of boat so that when I cross, the crocodiles won't eat me. Because you have found a solution for that specific problem. But also it needs the tools. You need the mindset, because you're really thinking about it at this point. You're like, okay, let me think about this thing that is going on. How do I find a solution to it? You see? So I don't think they're doing it intentionally. I don't think they also want to be victim intentionally. And sometimes the pain, the programming gets too much. You're like, oh yeah, it's fine, I might as well give up. I live in South Africa, and you would be like, we would agree, we're like, yeah, we're gonna do this, and they're like, yeah, we're doing this, and then they do the opposite thing. They do the very same thing that they feel comfortable in, and then blame that very same thing that keeps them in the state of oppression. And then they want to fight. Listen, it's 1:34 outside, it's hot. I'm not protesting for useless things. I do not give a damn. I am not wasting my time for that. Okay, there's a reason why I'm in the farms, enjoying my life on the farm, because I'm not gonna wait for you. I'm like, I found a solution. I'm like, I'm not gonna wait for you. Waiting for you, it means I'm gonna die. So I might as well just mind my business.
This lady went viral on TikTok without even having a TikTok account, because people would just go clip her YouTube videos, put it on TikTok, and every single time they would go viral. The only problem is the content that she talks about, which is basically teaching women how to stop dating broke men, requires a lot more depth than a platform like TikTok can really provide. So you have people who watch a couple of clips out of context and they try to apply the principles that she's talking about, and it doesn't go well. She's been on YouTube for a long time, and if you just click through her videos, you don't even have to watch them, just look at the titles. It provides a lot more context for the things that she's talking about. For example, you'll find out that she is a very spiritual person, and that is why her content is structured the way it is. It's not necessarily dating advice. She's teaching basic principles that apply to dating, jobs, finances, anything, because she's using spiritual principles and she's really teaching self-concept. She talks about law of attraction, manifestation, having enough confidence to walk into rooms to ask people for what you want. She absolutely knows what she's talking about, but there's one thing that I'd like you to consider. There are men who teach women dating tips in general, but there aren't any men who teach women how to get with men that have money. It's only women who teach women how to get men with money. I know why, but I want to be entertained by